Welcome back to Lost Voices of Fentanyl, an extremely powerful and emotional but important special that we have here today at RAV. For those of you just tuning in, we are live in Washington, D.C. with families across the country, many of which traveled hundreds of miles to be there today, holding faces of their loved ones that they lost to this national security crisis that is not getting enough attention. And politicians continue to put on the back burner. We are facing chemical warfare here in the United States. I'm joined here today by John Solomon, my co-host. John, there needs to be a conversation, there needs to be awareness, and something needs to be done.
Yeah, listen, they will talk about everything in this town in Washington except fentanyl. All right, they gave us one day as a commemorative day in August. That's a step forward. But the real solutions aren't on the table. The next opportunity is in this budget deal coming up in January. Will the Republicans have the chops to force Joe Biden to start to close down the border and put some of the teeth into the law that have been eradicated for the last couple of years? If he doesn't, we go another year, another 150,000 people. Keep in mind, more people have died from fentanyl poison this year than in the entire 12 years of the Vietnam War. That is unacceptable.
Yeah, and that number's only going to increase.
So keep going.
Well, I want to get right to our next guest because I want to get to the bottom of how this started, where it's coming in, and what you need to know. I am joined today by Derek Maltz. He is the former DEA Director of Special Operations. Derek, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate the support to the families around America. I know they all appreciate it. And from the bottom of my heart, Real America's Voice, thanks for stepping up.
Of course. Well, Derek, I think we need to get right into it. You guys actually had a great conversation the other day, pinpointing exactly how this fentanyl is being made and then coming into our country. Can you break down exactly where this is coming from and how it's entering here?
Well, first of all, America is not connecting the dots. The Chinese Communist Party and the Chinese criminal network started bombing America around 2008, 2009 with K2 spice bath salts. Then they went into fentanyl. Then they started shipping mass amounts of chemicals to the Mexican cartels to make this poisonous substance. Now they're producing xylazine, which is a horse tranquilizer that's rotting people from the inside and out, causing necrosis, amputations, ulcerations. And by the way, as we're sitting here today talking about fentanyl, they're pumping all other types of substances like nitazene, etinidazine, isonitazine. They're more powerful substances than fentanyl. So now they're also providing all the money laundering services for the cartels. But right now, the problem we have, the immediate problem, is that the border's wide open and the Mexican cartels are operating with impunity and they're killing our kids at record levels. There's nothing greater that's happening right now to our families and our communities, all right? The poor families that are sitting out in the audience, and that's why I'm very passionate, because I'm here to support them. And just like you're here to support them, and Border 911, I'm on a team of the most American patriotic people I've ever been around that actually secured the border in America under the last administration. And it's really disturbing that our president recently said that he's going to do everything in his power. So, Mr. President, when the hell are you shutting down the border? When are you going to get some accountability on CDC and the Department of Education? The kids are learning about critical race theory, okay? But what about the deadly substances? What about the stats? Like Virginia and April said, we don't even know the magnitude of the problem because we don't know how many people are poisoned. So I want to give you a good story here that just happened. Thanksgiving Day, right? We had 10 people in one home, okay? I think it was in Michigan that were, poisoned. We had 4 dead earlier in the week in Denver, on the streets of Denver. In September, we had 18 poisoned in Harrisburg, and about 9 were dead. It's every day we're having people die, and the government has no sense of urgency.
And you're not hearing a lot about this.
No, and even when you try to raise it, Derek was on the show the other day. We put the video up, and a couple hours later, tell us what YouTube did.
I'm so disappointed because I've been working in my retirement to support families, and I put up a video of an interview with Amanda Head, a great interview explaining this, and YouTube shut it down. They said it was not age appropriate, so okay, they could have changed it to 18 plus. All right, I'm fine with that. They took it off the air. That's unacceptable, but that's the problem. The government doesn't want this news going out, and the censored media wants to shut our voices down. But guess what? Like April said, we're not going away, okay? We're going to continue until the death rates go down. And if President Biden wants to do something about this problem, let me see the death rates go down. Yeah. And let me see some real-time stats on the TV every day. Fentanyl poisonings, fentanyl deaths. We don't see that.
It's interesting because if you want to destabilize a country quickly and silently, this is how you do it.
Perfect. So here's the deal. Let me show you this. This is like 1 gram of sugar, sweetener, whatever the heck it is, okay? You put this here. If that's a gram, 500 Americans can die from that amount of substance. Do we not understand this is a poisoning against our country? We've never had this in the history of the country. We've never had a terrorist organization destroy this many families and American citizens. So why are the cartels allowed to get away with this? And by the way, for the whole world to hear, I participated in the largest DEA drug enforcement conference in Jamaica in September. Guess what country didn't show up? 130 countries, and Mexico didn't show up. How is that acceptable? And why are we giving them money? If I was the State Department, I would shut down all funding immediately. How can they do that to these families?
Derek, I want to ask real quickly, any doubt in your mind that China's involvement in this is part of a geopolitical strategy to hurt the United States?
100% strategic plan to destabilize America, and shame on the American government for not putting the pieces together. Remember, Chris Wray has told us recently that China is the biggest national security threat to the country. But yet, we had 342 illegal Chinese apprehended at the border 2 years ago. This year, Border Patrol, the brave men and women, 24,125 Chinese nationals. But guess what? There's 1.8 million gotaways. How many Chinese nationals are in the gotaways? What are they doing here? What's their plan? But yes, it's a strategic plan to destabilize the country, and it's working.
It is, sadly.
Well, Derek, I want to get out to someone else that has firsthand experience at the border. Let's get out to our Ben Bergguam, who is live in the audience. Ben, we've been having this conversation for a while now. The borders are wide open, and yet nothing is being done. What are you seeing from reporting live from the border every single day, watching these drugs being trafficked over?
Well, I've been, as you mentioned, been reporting on it for years, and every time I go to the border, my prayer is that it gets better. That's my prayer, and we actually saw that under President Trump. I reported on the border for his entire 4-year term, and it did get better. His Remain in Mexico policy, the building the wall, allowing Border Patrol to do their jobs, repatriating illegal aliens that came across the border, focus, and it's really just a matter of priority. But what we have going on right now is the death of our nation. The last trip I just had down, you mentioned the border being closed, the port of entry being closed. That's Lukeville Port of Entry. Real America's Voice News, we actually broke that story a couple months ago. I was out there when I started seeing mass numbers come across that area, hundreds from West Africa, from China, from the Middle East, all coming through this area of, we call it no man's land out in the Arizona desert. Now we have thousands pouring through there, but it's not just there. The scary thing, everything that the American people need to know is it used to be, it was strategic to each point. So there was this ant operation that our reporters came across that the Mexican government was actually operating. They were actually trying to send small groups to areas of the border so it didn't look as big as a problem. And what's happened recently is there's just so many people coming across. We were just down in Panama, and there are hundreds of thousands of people coming across to where you can't slow it down. You can't shrink the numbers. The bottleneck, it would just destroy Mexico. It would destroy Panama. It would destroy all these countries they're coming through. So they're just all flooding in. So whether it's Brownsville, Texas, McAllen, Laredo, all the way across Texas to El Paso, through Arizona, all of this, every single port, every single point is being flooded because, not by accident, because of the incentives by Washington, D.C. They have invited this invasion into our country. And now, instead of having Border Patrol out in the areas where the drugs are coming across, they come through the ports of entry, but they also come through the areas that are unsecured. And what we have going on now is, at my last trip down there, we have no Border Patrol agents on the line for hundreds of miles in some cases.
Wow.
Zero Border Patrol. And to give you an idea of what that means, my last trip down there, I came across a group of several hundred that had just come across illegally, turning themselves in for fake asylum. And I witnessed that group being taken in by Border Patrol to be processed. I drove about another mile down the border, came across 7 drug smugglers that were about to come in. They had actually come across, filled up their waters. They were going to come in. Because I was there, because I had a camera, they ran back into Mexico. One of the guys dropped his hat. This is actually his hat from the border that he dropped. But this is happening. As soon as I left, guaranteed those guys came across. And the reality right now is our borders are completely unsecured. Fentanyl is pouring across. We have illegal aliens that are coming across. that we don't know what their intentions are. As you mentioned, as Derek mentioned, that we have Chinese syndicates coming across. We have Mexican nationals coming across, operating at will inside of every single one of our large metropolitan cities across America. And we have potential terrorists coming across. All of that because of the policies coming out of Washington, D.C.
It's just insane. Gentlemen, I want to ask a question because of all the places in the world, I never thought the United States government would tell me ground zero for China's war in America would be in Maine. Derek, can you explain a little bit what's going on in Maine with these marijuana pot grows?
Thank you for the question, John. I mean, criminals take advantage of weaknesses and vulnerabilities. We have a legalization movement in the country because the politicians have no idea how deadly these substances can be. We have Chinese nationals coming across the border. Maine is inundated. There's hundreds of locations that are run by Chinese men, Chinese women. They don't speak English, and they have these state-of-the-art marijuana grow operations. But, John, it's not just Maine. Oklahoma, Colorado, Massachusetts. I mean, I could go on. But you know what they're doing? They're undercutting the legal marijuana processes that people have instituted, and they're putting, drugs in the hands of people. We don't even know what's in these substances. So now they could be hurting our communities from inside America from deadly substances. We don't know. It's marijuana. We think it is, but we don't know what substances they're putting in them.
What it's laced with, right?
Yeah, what it's laced with. We know there's confirmed cases in America of people that have died from fentanyl in marijuana.
Homeland Security said 270 of these Chinese operations in Maine alone. Just think about that. That is a military attack.
Right.
In Maine alone.
And you know what? They get the credit for outsmarting America. So the challenge to the White House is, when are you going to wake up?
Yeah, when are we smarter? That's it.
Well, Derek, thank you so much for being with us. The question, when is the White House, when is Joe Biden going to wake up? Stick with us. We'll be back in just a moment.